Welcome, listeners, to The Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're embarking on what I think is a genuinely exciting exploration. We're looking into a tool that's, well, it feels poised to redefine how many of us interact with our core development environment. I'm talking about the Gemini CLI. Now, if you're a developer, you know the command line. It's often where the real work happens, right? Where you feel most in control.
Absolutely. It's like home base for a lot of us.
Exactly. Almost like a second home. But what if that incredibly familiar terminal wasn't just a place to type commands, but an intelligent, proactive partner?
Okay.
Right there with you, helping you solve problems, maybe anticipate needs, and ultimately freeing you up to innovate at an entirely new level.
That's a compelling vision.
That's the powerful promise, as I see it, of the Gemini CLI. It's about bringing the cutting-edge power of AI, specifically Gemini, directly into your established developer workflow, not replacing it, but enhancing it.
And that's precisely our mission in this deep dive. We're here to unpack exactly how the Gemini CLI can transform your daily development tasks.
Make things better.
Make you more powerful, more efficient, and fundamentally, a freer innovator. We'll explore its core capabilities, walk through some compelling real-world scenarios. Things that probably mimic challenges you face every day.
Things we all run into.
Right. And discuss its significant place in the rapidly evolving landscape of AI developer tools, ensuring you get a complete and insightful picture of this pretty groundbreaking utility.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start then. Because when I hear CLI tool with AI, my mind, it immediately goes to something like a chatbot.
A common first thought.
Something that takes a question, spits out an answer.
Yeah.
But we've seen those, right? And while they're useful for quick lookups, they often feel like, I don't know, glorified search bars.
Yeah.
Not true collaborators.
That's a fair assessment of some tools, yeah.
So what exactly is the Gemini CLI? Is it just another chatbot tucked into your terminal? Or is there something like fundamentally different going on here?
That's an excellent distinction to make, and you've hit on the core difference immediately. The Gemini CLI is indeed fundamentally different from a simple chatbot.
Okay, how so?
It's not merely a conversational interface designed for single Q&A exchanges. Instead, it's really positioned as an AI agent.
An agent, okay, that sounds more active.
It is. And this distinction is absolutely crucial because an agent is designed for far more than basic question and answer. Think of it as a versatile local utility. It's capable of orchestrating a wide range of tasks, moving well beyond those basic command-response interactions you might be familiar with from other tools.
So it's not just taking a prompt and spitting out one single answer. It's more sophisticated, like it has a plan or something.
Precisely. Its underlying intelligence, what truly sets it apart, leverages a really powerful concept known as the REACT loop.
REACT, R-E-A-C-T.
Yeah, exactly. It stands for Reason plus Act. And this isn't just some fancy acronym. It's the same robust technology shared with advanced tools like Gemini Code Assist.
Ah, okay. So there's consistency there.
Right. And this allows it to function as a multi-step collaborative reasoning agent. Let's kind of break that down.
Please do.
The reasoning component. Well, it means it doesn't just process your prompts superficially. It has the ability to understand complex prompts, even ones that imply multiple stages or require, actual problem solving.
More than just keywords.
Much more. It can then break those larger, intricate problems down into smaller, more manageable steps. And from those steps, it forms a cohesive plan. It's truly like it's thinking alongside you, building a multi-step strategy to achieve your overall goal, rather than just reacting blindly to individual keywords.
Okay, that reasoning part makes sense. It thinks, it plans. What about the act part of REACT? That sounds like it moves beyond just suggesting things. What does that mean for me as a developer, practically speaking?
The acting component is where this truly becomes a game changer, I think. It means the Gemini CLI has the capacity to actually execute those steps it planned out.
Yeah, execute them, like run commands, change files.
Exactly. It can interact directly with its environment, and that's your terminal, your local file system, and even the broader web. It can take actions to achieve the task it has reasoned through. But here's where it truly shines and differentiates itself from simpler tools. It can auto-recover from failed implementation paths.
Auto-recover. What does that mean? If it messes up?
Sort of. If it attempts a step in its plan, say running a command that fails or trying to parse a file that's not quite the format it expected, it doesn't just give up or throw an error message back at you.
Which is what most things do.
Right. Instead, it reassesses the situation, adjusts its plan based on the failure, and intelligently tries a different approach. It uses its reasoning ability to find a new path forward.
Wow.
This capability fundamentally expands the capabilities of simple command response interactions. It allows it to actively assist you, iterate on solutions, learn from its attempts, and overcome issues rather than just passively waiting for your next single query. It's an active collaborator, like you said, not just a passive tool.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting then, because it sounds like it's about supercharging that familiar terminal we all live in, not replacing it, right?
Absolutely.
Because for so many of us, developers live in the terminal. It truly is home due to its incredible efficiency, ubiquity, and portability.
hmm
You can SSH into a server anywhere, and you've got your tools.
That's absolutely right. And it's a critical design choice. The terminal is powerful. Think about tools like the Google Cloud CLI, for
So
example.
you use it all the time.
It's been a testament to the power of the command line for managing Google Cloud resources for years, offering literally thousands of commands for granular control, local emulators for faster development cycles, and broad platform compatibility. Developers value the terminal's ability to facilitate fast, scriptable orchestration and really accelerate software development by providing that direct, efficient interface for everything from pushing files to VMs to deploying functions.
All right, you script things, you automate.
Exactly.
Yep.
The Gemini CLI builds on this established comfort and capability. It infuses that familiar environment with cutting-edge AI. It's designed to extend your existing power, not force you into a whole new way of working.
And crucially, this isn't some opaque proprietary black box, is it?
Yeah.
Because that's always a concern when we talk about powerful AI tools integrating so deeply into our workflows. We want to know what's under the hood, you know?
Not at all. And this is a significant advantage, I think. A key aspect of the Gemini CLI is its free and open source nature. It operates under the Apache 2.0 license.
Apache 2.0.
Oh,
Okay,
there you
that's
go.
permissive.
Very. And this isn't just a philosophical stance. It has profound practical implications for you, the developer. It means you have the ability to inspect the code yourself.
Actually look at it.
Yep. Giving you full transparency into how it works. You can delve into its logic, understand its decisions, and most importantly, verify its security implications. You can see exactly what it's doing with your files or commands.
That builds a lot of trust.
It does. And even better, it fosters a truly collaborative spirit. You can contribute to its development directly. This means you can report bugs you find, suggest new features you'd like to see, help continuously improve its security practices, and even submit code improvements directly via its GitHub repository.
So the community can actually make it better.
Absolutely. It's a living, breathing project driven by the very community it aims to serve, which should accelerate innovation and definitely builds trust.
That's fantastic for the community, that transparency and improvement loop. But let's talk about access, because a tool this powerful, well, it often comes with a hefty price tag. Is this something that's going to cost an arm and a leg? Or is it something an individual developer, maybe a student or a startup, can easily jump into without a major investment?
The accessibility is truly one of its standout features, and it feels like a strategic move to democratize advanced AI for every developer.
How so?
You can get unmatched free usage limits just by logging in with a personal Google account. That's it.
Just a regular Google account,
Yeah,
like my Gmail.
exactly. This immediately grants you access to Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is a seriously powerful, cutting-edge model. And when we say unmatched, the source material is pretty clear. It describes it as the industry's largest allowance.
Okay, what does that translate to? Numbers.
You receive 60 model requests per minute and 1,000 requests per day at no charge.
Whoa, 60 a minute, 1,000 a day, for free.
Yep. For most individual developers, for daily exploration, learning, integrating it into personal projects, that's probably more than enough to explore its capabilities extensively without ever hitting a paywall.
That's actually huge. That really lowers the barrier.
It does. And for professional developers, or, say, larger teams with more demanding needs, there are still flexible options available. You can use Google AI Studio or Vertex AI keys for usage-based billing, or even opt for Gemini Code Assist Standard or Enterprise licenses for even higher throughput and advanced features. But the core idea seems to be making powerful AI readily available to everyone right from the start.
Okay, so we've established what it is, an AI agent, not just a chatbot, using React. And it's open source, accessible. But what does this all mean for my, actual daily workflow? How does an AI agent living right there in my terminal actually make my life easier as a developer? Let's dive into some core, tangible benefits that really impact the day-to-day grind.
Yeah, let's get practical. The first, and arguably one of the most impactful benefits, is a significant reduction in what we call context switching.
Ugh, context switching, the bane of my existence.
Tell me about it. As developers, we constantly juggle multiple tools throughout the day, right? We're in our IDE coding,
Yep.
we're switching to a browser for documentation, for Stack Overflow searches, for API references.
All the time. Multiple tabs open.
Exactly. We might have various dashboards open, and of course, we're constantly in the terminal, executing commands, managing files, viewing logs, this constant hopping between applications, these mental ping pongs, it just breaks your flow.
Totally. Fragments your attention. It's incredibly mentally draining by the end of the day.
I know that feeling all too well. You're deep in thought, maybe tracing a really tricky bug through the code,
Yeah, you're in the zone.
and suddenly you're pulling up a browser tab to search for some obscure error message you just saw in the logs, then back to the IDE to try applying a fix, then back to the terminal to rerun the process. It's this mental gymnastics routine that honestly just saps your energy and your focus.
It really does. So how does Gemini CLI help with that?
Okay, let's paint a picture of a high-pressure scenario. Imagine you're debugging a critical production issue. A live system is maybe partially down, a customer is waiting.
Stress levels high.
Right. And you need to understand these deeply nested error logs, search for obscure error codes, figure out precisely what went wrong, and then propose and apply a fix, all under immense pressure. Traditionally, you might be in your terminal, see a log message, copy an error code,
Yep. Copy paste.
switch to a browser, paste it into search, maybe find a relevant Stack Overflow post, read through it, switch to your IDE, try to modify the code based on what you read.
I hope you understood it right.
Then back to the terminal to deploy or test the fix. This cycle is incredibly inefficient and definitely error-prone because of that constant mental disruption.
So what's the Gemini CLI way?
With Gemini CLI, that entire process can be dramatically consolidated. Right there in the terminal, you can prompt it directly. Something like, analyze this log file, and you give it the file path for this specific error code, search the web for related issues or solutions, and propose a code fix for main.py.
All in one prompt.
Potentially, or maybe a couple of quick follow-ups.
Yeah.
The point is, the Gemini CLI, leveraging its file system access capabilities, can read your local log file directly. No copy pasting logs.
Okay.
It then utilizes Google Search grounding, that's its connection to the web, to fetch real-time external context about that specific error. It pulls in solutions or discussions from across the internet right now.
This is getting fresh info.
Exactly. Based on its deep analysis of your code, which it can also read, and that fresh web context, it can then suggest a precise patch or fix for your code. All of this happens right there in your terminal. It keeps your mental context intact, your focus sharp. It significantly reduces the friction and time spent switching applications.
It's like having an incredibly knowledgeable assistant sitting next to you who can read your screen, search the web, and suggest code without you ever leaving the command line.
That's a great way to put it. It specializes in immediate problem solving without needing you to leave your primary workspace.
Okay, that's huge for focus.
Yeah.
What about just speeding up the work itself, getting things done faster?
Yeah, that leads directly to our second major benefit, accelerated development. This isn't just about, typing code faster, though it certainly helps with generating snippets. It's about significantly speeding up the often tedious initial phases of development.
Like setting up new projects.
Exactly.
Right.
Particularly when setting up new projects or generating common structures that pretty much every project needs. Think about all that boilerplate code.
Oh, the boilerplate. Don't get me started.
Yep.
That endless loop of creating directories, setting up config files, environment variables, initial routing files. It's all necessary, absolutely foundational work. But definitely not the most exciting or creative part of starting a new feature or a whole new project. I remember one project where I seriously felt like I spent more time just setting up the environment than writing the first line of actual interesting logic.
We've all been there.
This sounds like a dream come true for those initial frustrations.
Precisely. So instead of manually creating directories, basic application files, maybe a requirements.txt for, let's say, a new Flask project.
Standard stuff.
You can just prompt Gemini CLI to do it for you. You could say something as natural as, generate a basic Flask application structure. Give me a hello world endpoint and set up a virtual environment, please.
Ask it like that.
Pretty much. The agent would then spring into action. It would create the necessary file structure, maybe an app.py, perhaps a templates folder, and crucially, a requirements.txt file with Flask listed as a dependency.
Okay, nice.
And it wouldn't stop there. It would then suggest the exact commands you need to initialize your Python virtual environment and install Flask within it using pip.
So it guides you through the next steps, too.
Exactly. This directly showcases its capability for coding and how it can streamline your workflow with natural language. It effectively gives you a running minimal Flask application in seconds rather than minutes of manual clicking and typing.
Mm.
This rapid scaffolding allows you to jump straight into implementing the core features, the interesting bits, rather than getting bogged down in that repetitive setup.
That is incredibly powerful for just getting a project off the ground quickly. Okay, so it helps with focus, it helps with starting projects. Building on that, our next big benefit, you said, is how it can truly simplify complex and maybe daunting tasks.
Yes.
I'm thinking about those really intricate development jobs, like large-scale code refactoring, where you're touching a huge amount of existing code,
Well,
maybe code you didn't even write,
yeah, the scary stuff.
or even just trying to understand a massive, unfamiliar code base you've inherited. These are the kinds of challenges that can make even experienced developers feel, well, overwhelmed, where you just don't know where to start sometimes.
They absolutely can be intimidating. Suppose you're faced with an old monolithic function, a real beast that has grown organically into a tangled mess over time. Let's call it calculate order total for argument's sake.
I've seen functions like that, probably written them too.
Yeah. It handles taxes, shipping calculations, discounts, special promotions, everything, all crammed into one sprawling function. Refactoring this manually is not just time-consuming, it's highly error-prone.
Definitely. A mistake in one part can ripple unseen through the entire system.
Exactly. Leading to new bugs that are even harder to track down later. With Gemini CLI, you can tackle this more strategically. You could prompt it with something like, refactor this calculate order total function, break it into smaller, more modular functions for calculating tax, shipping, and applying discounts separately.
So it can actually understand the intent behind the refactoring and suggest a structured, intelligent approach rather than just blindly chopping up the code, because that's a huge difference. You don't want it just making random cuts.
That's the core power of its code understanding and its multi-step reasoning. It won't just blindly chop up the code. It analyzes the existing function first. It understands its dependencies, its internal logic, even potential side effects.
Okay.
Then, based on that understanding, it proposes a structured refactoring plan. It might suggest new function signatures like calculate tax, subtotal, calculate shipping items, and apply discounts, subtotal, discount codes.
Makes sense.
More impressively, it can often suggest the actual implementations for these new functions, carefully extracting the relevant logic from your original monolithic function and placing it correctly into the new modular components. This dramatically simplifies what would otherwise be a grueling manual process. It makes daunting refactoring projects much more manageable and significantly less prone to introducing those sneaky new bugs.
It's like having an intellectual partner in code transformation, helping you untangle that complexity safely.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay, that sounds like it could save days, maybe even weeks, on larger legacy projects, freeing up a lot of developer bandwidth. So focus, acceleration, handling complexity. What about our fourth benefit? You mentioned automating those really tedious chores.
Yes, the necessary evils.
Because let's be honest, a lot of developer tasks are repetitive.
Hmm.
They're necessary, they're crucial, but definitely not the most stimulating part of the job.
You're absolutely right. And this is where Gemini CLI can truly shine by just taking over those repetitive but necessary tasks. This frees you up for more creative, higher value problem solving. A classic example is unit test generation.
Unit tests. Love them. Hate writing them sometimes.
Exactly. After you've spent time crafting a new function, maybe a user authentication function with various checks,
Yep.
the chore of writing comprehensive unit tests for it often falls to the wayside or gets rushed. It's essential for code quality, for future maintenance, for catching regressions, but it can feel like a real grind, especially when deadlines are looming large.
Definitely. It's one of those things you should do thoroughly, cover all the edge cases, but it's just so easy to rush or maybe even skip when the pressure's on. My team have very specific testing frameworks and naming conventions, though. Can Gemini adapt to those, or is it more of a generic test generator?
That's an astute question, and it speaks to the tool's flexibility and personalization, which we can touch on more later. While it generates robust, functional tests out of the box, you can definitely guide it.
Oh.
With Gemini CLI, you can simply prompt it more specifically. Generate unit tests for this user authentication function. Make sure to cover positive and negative login scenarios. Use PyTest as the framework, and please follow the test functionario naming convention for the test functions.
Oh, nice. You can tell the framework and naming.
Yes. The CLI can then write tests by analyzing your function's signature, its expected inputs and outputs, identifying common edge cases based on its training, and then generate that test code tailored specifically to PyTest in this case, adhering to your specified naming conventions.
That's pretty smart.
It directly leverages its ability to automate tasks and helps free developers to innovate by taking away the drudgery of writing those repetitive test cases. You get robust test coverage, potentially better than you might have written under pressure without the manual effort. This allows you to focus your brain power on the next big feature or solving a more complex architectural challenge.
Get the boring stuff done right so you can focus on the fun stuff. I like it.
And building on all these capabilities, the context keeping, the code generation, the automation, it's worth reiterating a key technical advantage that powers much of this truly remarkable functionality. That's the large context window.
Right. You mentioned that earlier. The free tier gives you access to Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Correct, which boasts a massive 1 million token context window.
Okay, 1 million tokens. For listeners who might not be deep into the AI terminology, what does that actually mean in practical terms for me as a developer using the CLI day to day? Because that just sounds like a lot of information.
It is an immense amount of information, and honestly, it's transformative for what an AI can do. It means Gemini can input millions of tokens, which enables it to gain understanding from unstructured images, videos, and documents in other contexts.
Okay, but for code?
For developers using the CLI, this translates directly to the AI being able to comprehend much larger and more complex inputs within a single interaction. Imagine feeding it an entire code base, or a massive log file spanning thousands and thousands of lines, or maybe multiple documentation pages simultaneously.
All at once.
Yes. The AI won't lose track of the previous parts of your conversation or struggle to maintain context across all those disparate pieces of information nearly as quickly as models with smaller windows. This leads to significantly more accurate, relevant, and comprehensive responses.
Why?
Because it has a broader, deeper, and more persistent understanding of the entire problem space you've presented to it. It's like giving it a giant whiteboard to work with where it can see the whole picture. Instead of a tiny sticky note that quickly runs out of space and it forgets what was written before. This immense context capability is absolutely critical for complex tasks like debugging large distributed systems with interactions across services, or refactoring interconnected modules spread across many files, or even generating new code that needs to adhere to conventions and patterns found across a vast array of existing project files.
So it can see more of the project at once and understand how things fit together better.
Precisely. It truly mirrors how a human developer would need to immerse themselves in a project to really get their head around it.
Okay, we've talked about the theory, the benefits, the underlying power, the context window. But as developers, we learn by doing. Let's actually see the Gemini CLI in action, metaphorically speaking. Imagine we're pair programming together right now.
Okay, I like it.
And the Gemini CLI is our incredibly smart, maybe slightly tireless third partner ready to jump in whenever we need it. Let's start with getting it set up. How easy is that?
Getting started is surprisingly straightforward. It's really designed for minimal friction. You simply install the Gemini CLI using your preferred package manager. Typically, it's just a quick npm install -e at Google Gemini CLI.
Okay, standard npm install.
Got it. Once installed, you then simply log in with a personal Google account. Run a command like Gemini auth login.
And that gives you the free tier.
Yep, that immediately gets you free access to Gemini 2.5 Pro with those generous usage limits we discussed earlier. For professional developers who might need higher throughput or specific cloud integrations, you can also use a Google AI Studio or Vertex AI key.
How does that work?
That enables usage-based billing and allows for more tailored integration into larger enterprise workflows, perhaps tying into specific GCP projects. It's built for flexibility, from individual hobbyists to large teams.
Right. So once it's installed and I'm logged in, how does it actually interact with my stuff? My files, the web, my terminal?
The agent interacts with your environment through several powerful built-in tools. First, it has robust file system access.
We talked about that. It can read my files.
Yes, enabling file manipulation and code understanding by interacting directly with your local files. This means you can point it to a specific file using syntax, like at path_file.py in your prompt,
Ah, the @ symbol.
or even an entire directory, and it can read, analyze, and with permission even modify that content directly. This is obviously crucial for tasks like debugging or refactoring code in place.
So it's not just operating in some isolated sandbox, it's genuinely aware of my actual project files, able to dive right into my code base. That's a huge difference from most external AI tools I've seen.
Exactly. It grounds the interaction in your actual working context. Secondly, it can ground prompts with Google Search so you can fetch web pages and provide real-time external context to the model.
The web search thing.
Right. This is absolutely crucial for troubleshooting errors, gathering up-to-the-minute information on new APIs or libraries, or understanding current best practices. If you encounter some obscure error message from a third-party library,
Like happens all the time.
it can search for solutions and incorporate that fresh knowledge directly into its responses, grounding its advice in the latest information, not just its training data cutoff.
That keeps it relevant.
Nice.
And the last tool.
And finally, the CLI has built-in tools allowing you to document execution. This means it can not only suggest terminal commands you should run,
Like git commit or npm install.
exactly, but with your explicit confirmation, and this is important, it's designed to be safe and always asks for your explicit approval before modifying your file system or executing commands.
Good. Don't want it running rm-rf on its own.
Definitely not. With your yes, it can actually run those commands. This simplifies complex sequences of commands or allows it to apply fixes directly to your system based on its recommendations. It's a truly interactive and actionable AI partner.
All right, let's put this virtual pair programmer to the test. I've got this Python script. Let's call it main.py. And I'm hitting a key error that's really stumping me. I've been staring at it for what feels like an hour, pulling my hair out. Here's the traceback. How can Gemini CLI help me track this down quickly and painlessly?
Okay, perfect scenario. Let's get our third partner involved and leverage its reasoning capabilities. First, you'd provide Gemini CLI with the full context it needs, not just the error message itself, but the relevant code file too. So your initial prompt could be pretty comprehensive. Something like, Gemini, analyze at main.py and incorporate this traceback I'm seeing. Paste the traceback here. Then explain the most likely cause of the key error. Show me the problematic line and describe why that specific key might be missing.
So I give it the file and the error.
Exactly. What Gemini does next is leverage its powerful code understanding capabilities combined with its reasoning engine. It takes that traceback, which precisely pinpoints the line number where the error occurred, and correlates that with the actual contents of your main.py file, as you gave it the at main.py reference. It understands Python syntax, data structures, like dictionaries, and common programming patterns.
Okay.
Its reasoning component then goes to work. It will look at the line where the key error is thrown, identify the dictionary or object being accessed, and then analyze the preceding lines of code to determine how that dictionary was populated or perhaps wasn't populated correctly.
Trying to figure out why the key isn't there.
Precisely. It might identify that a function call returned none instead of the expected dictionary, or that a key was expected from an API response, but the API response was malformed or didn't include it this time. The goal here is for it to not just tell you there's an error, you already know that, but to pinpoint why that specific key is missing at that specific point in execution. It provides a precise diagnosis that cuts through the guesswork.
That's incredibly helpful for diagnosis. It's like having an expert pair programmer instantly tell you exactly where to look and why, without me having to manually trace every variable back through the execution flow. So once it's identified the cause, what's the next step? How do we get it to propose a fix, and even better, to show me the specific code change?
Right, diagnosis is only half the battle. Once you have that clear diagnosis from Gemini, you'd follow up immediately. You could prompt something like, okay, given that diagnosis, what's the most robust and Pythonic way to fix this key error in main.py way? Show me the exact code change, or maybe a suggested diff, please.
Asking for the code fix.
Yes. And Gemini's code generation capabilities and its understanding of language best practices come into play here. Based on its understanding of the problem, why the key was missing, and its knowledge of Python idioms, it will generate a concise and effective code snippet.
What might that look like?
It might be a suggested if key in my dictionary.check before accessing the key, or perhaps a safer my dictionary.get key default value approach to provide a fallback if the key is missing. Or maybe even wrapping the access in a try except key error block to gracefully handle the missing key, depending on the specific context and what seems most appropriate.
It suggests different options, or picks one.
It usually suggests the most common or Pythonic solution first, but you could potentially ask for alternatives. The output will typically be a clear, concise code suggestion, often formatted as a diff that you can easily review, showing exactly what lines to add or change. It's not just telling you what to do, but how to do it, right down to the syntax and context. That's incredibly efficient for a developer in the middle of debugging.
Yeah, seeing the diff is key. And then the ultimate convenience factor. Can it actually apply that change directly to the file for me? Because, copying and pasting even small changes, while quick, can still be a bit of a friction point, especially if you're in a rapid iteration cycle trying different fixes.
Absolutely. This is where its file manipulation and command execution capabilities truly shine, making it a seamless part of your workflow. After reviewing the suggested fix and deciding you like it, you could then prompt, okay, looks good. Now, can you apply that change directly to at main.py?
And it will just do it.
It'll ask for confirmation first. Remember the safety aspect. It'll likely respond with something like, I can apply this change, proceed, YN. You type Y, hit enter.
Yeah.
And it uses its built-in tools to directly edit main.py, inserting the suggested code fix precisely where it's needed. This dramatically streamlines the entire debug, diagnose, fix cycle. You go from identifying a problem to generating a solution to applying it all within the terminal with minimal manual intervention. It exemplifies how the Gemini CLI integrates deeply into your existing workflow, making it incredibly powerful for immediate problem resolution and continuous code iteration.
That was incredibly fast, in my head at least. Taking a nasty key error from a cryptic traceback message to fixed code applied directly to the file in just a few prompts, and all without leaving the terminal. That's a huge win. Now, how about something from scratch? Let's try a code generation scenario. I want to build a simple command line weather tool, let's say in Go this time.
Okay, Go weather tool. Good choice.
It should take a city name as a command line argument and then fetch the current temperature from some hypothetical weather API. Can Gemini CLI help me with that, maybe even suggesting the basic structure?
Definitely. This is a perfect scenario to showcase its code generation abilities and its understanding of common application structures across different languages. You'd start by asking it to lay the groundwork. Your first prompt could be quite specific. Gemini, create a Go program file named weatherapp.go. It should take a single command line argument for a city name. For now, just make it print fetching weather for city using the provided city argument.
Pretty clear instructions.
Right. Gemini's action here would be to immediately create that file, weatherapp.go, in your current directory. It would then populate it with the basic Go program structure, the package main, the import statements, likely OS and FMT initially, and the func main.
The standard Go boilerplate.
Exactly. And crucially, it would add the logic to parse command line arguments, probably checking os.args, specifically looking for the city name after the program name, handling the case where it might be missing, and then integrate that city name into the fmt.println statement. So you'd get a functional, albeit minimal, Go program ready for the next step, complete with basic argument handling. It understands common programming patterns and immediately sets up the scaffolding for your application without you having to remember the exact boilerplate or argument parsing syntax off the top of your head.
Okay, so it handles the basic structure and argument parsing. That's a great start. Definitely saves me from looking up the os.arg syntax again. But a weather app needs to actually fetch the weather right. How do we get it to add the API call logic and process, say a JSON response to get the temperature?
That's your next logical prompt, building seamlessly on the initial structure it just created. You'd ask something like, okay, now add logic to at weatherapp.go to call a hypothetical weather API. Let's use the endpoint https.api.example.com/weather.citycity. It should parse a JSON response from that API and display only the temperature value.
Specifying the API endpoint and what I want out of the JSON.
Precisely. Gemini then leverages its extensive knowledge of programming languages Go, in this case, and common patterns for network requests and data serialization. It would add code to weatherapp.go that uses Go's netTTP package to perform an HTTP GET request to that specified hypothetical API endpoint. It would dynamically substitute city with the argument provided by the user.
Makes sense.
More importantly, it understands how to handle network requests properly, including potential errors, and how to parse structured data like JSON. It would include logic to check for HTTP errors, like 404s or 500s, read the response body, and then parse the JSON using Go's encoding JSON package.
It knows about encoding JSON.
Oh, yeah. It would likely anticipate a common JSON structure for weather data, maybe something like city, Boston, temperature, 15.5, unit, C, and generate the Go struct needed to unmarshal that JSON. It would then extract the temperature field specifically and modify the print statement to display that value in a user-friendly format.
Wow.
This showcases its ability to generate quite functional code, including those common but often verbose tasks like setting up HTTP clients, error handling for network calls, defining structs for JSON, and the actual data parsing. It effectively creates a complete, albeit simplified, weather application in just a few prompts. It truly saves you from having to look up NFTTP and encoding JSON package usage details, or remember the boilerplate for setting up structs and all the necessary error checks.
That's incredibly impressive for a CLI tool. To go from zero to a functional Go weather app, complete with API calls and JSON parsing, in just maybe 2 or 3 prompts, that is a huge time saver. And once the code is there in the file, can it even help me compile and run it, just to tie it all together?
It absolutely can. While that's not strictly part of the code generation, you can definitely ask for the commands needed to compile and execute it, demonstrating its full integration into your development lifecycle. Your final prompt in the sequence might be, okay, looks good. Can you suggest the commands I need to compile and then run this Go application with a city, say Boston?
Asking for the build and run commands.
Exactly. Gemini's action here would be to provide the standard Go commands you'd use. It would likely suggest go build weatherapp.go to compile your source code into an executable binary in the current directory.
Yep.
And then the weather at Boston, or whatever city you use, to actually run the compiled application, passing Boston as the command line argument it expects. This demonstrates how it integrates seamlessly with your local development environment. It knows not just how to write Go code, but also how to build and execute it within the typical developer workflow, providing that helpful end-to-end assistance.
That full cycle support is really neat. It feels much more integrated than just spitting out code snippets.
And this whole powerful experience, this agent working alongside you, can be deeply personalized. This makes it truly your intelligent agent, not just a generic tool.
Personalized. How?
You can customize Gemini CLI for your specific needs, your particular workflows, even your team's coding conventions, using a special configuration file, usually named gemini.md, placed in your project directory or home directory. The source material wisely points out that the terminal is a personal space, and everyone deserves the autonomy to make theirs unique.
Yeah, okay. Gemini.md. So it's not a one-size-fits-all AI that I just have to adapt to. I can actually fine-tune its behavior for my specific projects or my personal preferences. Maybe shape its personality or its coding style a bit.
Precisely. Think of Gemini.md as a configuration file where you can define persistent instructions or system prompts for Gemini. You can customize prompts and instructions and apply system prompts via Gemini.md to tailor Gemini's behavior whenever you run it within that context.
What kind of things could I put in there?
For example, you could define a system prompt that tells it something like, always write Python code that strictly adheres to PEP8 standards, includes comprehensive doc strings for all public functions, and prefers list comprehensions over map filter where appropriate.
Very specific coding standards.
Or for a debugging context, maybe. When analyzing Python tracebacks, prioritize looking for none-type errors first, then key error or index error, then potential database connection issues. You can guide its focus.
Interesting. So you're giving it standing orders.
Exactly. This ensures it acts more like your personalized AI agent, integrated deeply into your specific development environment and reflecting your team's conventions. It makes its suggestions and actions even more relevant, consistent, and helpful over time. It allows for a level of tailored assistance that moves far beyond generic AI interactions.
That customization aspect sounds really powerful for making it fit perfectly into how I work or how my team works. Okay, this is truly innovative stuff, and the scenarios you've walked us through really bring its potential to life. But as we know, AI tools for developers are popping up absolutely everywhere now. The landscape is getting, well, crowded.
It is moving fast.
Where does the Gemini CLI fit into this growing ecosystem? What makes it stand out from everything else out there, beyond just being a command line tool? What are the key differentiators?
That's a critical question, especially with the rapid pace of innovation we're seeing. While the market is indeed becoming crowded with various AI assistants for developers, Gemini CLI has several key differentiators that position it uniquely based on the materials.
Okay, like what?
The first, and perhaps most significant from a technical standpoint, is its foundation on the React model. We talked about this reason and act. This provides its multi-step, collaborative reasoning agent capabilities.
Right, the agentic part.
Exactly. Many other AI tools, even really good ones, might offer more straightforward command-response interactions or function primarily as extremely advanced auto-completion engines within an IDE. Gemini CLI, by contrast, is explicitly engineered to build complex plans, execute them, iterate based on results, and even self-correct when issues arise during execution.
So it's more about problem solving than just code completion.
That's a good way to frame it. This deep agentic behavior, its ability to sort of think with you and adapt its approach based on intermediate results, is a powerful differentiator. It allows it to tackle problems requiring more than just a single immediate answer or code snippet. It genuinely tries to solve multi-step problems for you, not just answer isolated questions or complete the line you're typing.
Okay. The React agent capability is number one. What else?
Another major differentiator, especially for individual developers or folks just starting out, is those unmatched free usage limits we covered.
The 60 requests per minute, 1,000 per day thing.
Right. Getting that level of access to a cutting-edge model like Gemini 2.5 Pro with just a personal Google account is, as the sources state pretty clearly, the industry's largest allowance. This isn't just generosity. It feels like a profound strategic statement about democratizing advanced AI capabilities for every developer. It lowers the barrier to entry incredibly significantly.
Makes it easy for anyone to try it out extensively.
Exactly. It makes powerful AI highly accessible and encourages widespread experimentation and daily integration into workflows without developers worrying about racking up immediate costs. It's about seeding the ecosystem, getting developers comfortable with this new way of working.
Makes sense. What else?
Its deep terminal integration is also fundamental to its identity. Unlike many web-based AI chat tools or even some IDE extensions that might pull you out of your terminal focus.
Yeah, switching windows again.
Gemini CLI's core purpose is explicitly bringing the power of Gemini directly into your terminal. This means direct file manipulation, using @references, and command execution with confirmation are built into its very nature. It allows you to stay in your preferred workflow environment, maintaining your flow and focus, which we already discussed is a huge benefit.
Keeps you where you work best.
Precisely. And finally, don't underestimate the open source Apache 2.0 nature. This transparency fosters immense trust, allows for broad community contributions and scrutiny, and means its development can be driven by the very developers who use it daily. This often leads to faster innovation and a more tailored, robust tool in the long run compared to closed-source alternatives.
Right, the community can help shape it. And it also shares technology with other Google AI products like Code Assist, right? So there's a consistency there if you use both.
Yes, that's a strong point that adds significant value for developers using Google's ecosystem. It shares tech with Gemini Code Assist, which means if you're already using Gemini Code Assist in your integrated development environment like VS Code or JetBrains IDEs,
Which many people are starting to do.
you're getting a consistent and familiar AI help in both your terminal and your IDE. The underlying models and some of the reasoning capabilities are shared. This provides a cohesive, AI-first coding experience across different development environments. It ensures that the intelligent assistance you receive feels familiar and integrated, no matter where you happen to be working at that moment, digging through files in the terminal or writing code in the editor.
So the AI feels like the same brain helping you in both places.
Exactly. This unified approach minimizes learning curves and maximizes the benefit of leveraging AI in your day-to-day work, creating a potentially powerful, interconnected ecosystem for developers.
Okay, so if this is where we are now with this powerful, agentic, open source AI living in our terminals, what does this herald for the future of development? If the terminal truly is home for so many developers, what kinds of advancements can we realistically expect to see, with AI living right there, becoming an even more integrated, maybe almost invisible part of our workflow?
That raises an important and, frankly, incredibly exciting question about the evolution of developer tooling and our relationship with AI.
Yeah.
We seem to be moving beyond purely reactive assistance tools that wait for us to ask a question,
Right, waiting for the prompt.
to potentially proactive agents. Imagine a future where the Gemini CLI doesn't just respond to your explicit prompts, but actually anticipates your needs based on context.
How would that work?
Based on the active files you have open, maybe the types of errors appearing in your console output, or the specific Git branch or task you're currently working on, it might proactively suggest the next logical step. It could recommend a refactoring opportunity to improve code quality, it noticed, or even fetch relevant documentation for a function you just typed before you've even formulated the search query yourself.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it's watching what I do and offering help before I ask.
Potentially, yes. This builds directly on that multi-step collaborative reasoning agent concept we discussed. It could observe your workflow, infer your intent based on patterns, and offer timely, relevant assistance without being explicitly asked. It could truly become a silent, helpful co-pilot, always looking a step ahead.
That's fascinating. So it could become a true intelligent co-pilot that's always looking over your shoulder, but, in a good way, helping you before you even know you need the help sometimes.
Exactly. We can also expect to see deeper integrations evolving over time. Currently, it interacts powerfully with your local file system and the web via Google Search. But imagine even tighter integration with other tools and services that are part of your daily development environment.
Like what? Version control,
Yeah,
CI/CD.
precisely. The sources hint at this future direction with mentions of things like built-in support for the Model Context Protocol, MCP, or bundled extensions. This suggests a highly extensible future architecture. Think of something like MCP as a potential standardized language or framework.
A common way for tools to talk.
Yeah, exactly. A way that allows AI tools like Gemini CLI to truly understand and interact with the unique context of your code,
Mm.
your specific project setup, your environment variables, and even other development services like your version control system, maybe suggesting commit messages or analyzing diffs, your cloud deployment pipelines, perhaps helping debug deployment failures, your project management tools, linking code changes to tickets, or even specific APIs for popular third-party services you might be using.
So the terminal becomes the central hub, where the AI orchestrates interactions across my entire development ecosystem.
That's the potential vision. It could dramatically reduce even more context switching and streamline incredibly complex workflows that currently span many disparate tools and web interfaces.
Wow. Okay, that's a big vision.
And finally, the continuous learning aspect, driven by its open source nature, is absolutely key to this future. The Gemini CLI isn't a static product released once a year. It's designed to be constantly improved and adapted by a global community of developers.
Through GitHub contributions and feedback.
Exactly. This means it will continuously learn from diverse developer workflows reported as issues or discussed in feature requests. It will incorporate support for new programming paradigms, libraries, and best practices much faster. It will become more intelligent and versatile over time because the collective intelligence and contributions of the open source community will directly feed into the agent's capabilities. This leads to an ever-evolving, increasingly powerful virtual partner right there in your terminal. It's a vision where the terminal truly becomes a dynamic, intelligent hub for almost all your development activities.
That future sounds pretty amazing, honestly. Less drudgery, more focus, smarter assistance.
Well, this deep dive has truly just scratched the surface of what's possible with the Gemini CLI even today. The best, most profound way to truly understand its power and how it can revolutionize your own workflow is to experience it yourself. Get your hands dirty.
Try it out.
So we highly encourage you listening to upgrade your terminal experience with Gemini CLI today. Give it a shot.
How should people start?
The installation process is straightforward. As we mentioned, usually just that npm install and Gemini auth login. With your personal Google account, you get that immediate access to Gemini 2.5 Pro with those incredibly generous free usage limits. That gives you ample opportunity to explore without any commitment.
And what should they try first?
Yeah.
Jump into refactoring a monolith.
Huh. Maybe not first thing. When you first get started, we definitely recommend that you start with simple tasks. Try using it to generate small code snippets you need. Maybe ask it to explain a piece of code you find confusing. Or try debugging minor issues you might encounter in your daily work. Or automate those small, repetitive chores that always eat up a little bit of your time, like writing boilerplate or simple tests.
Build confidence with smaller wins.
Exactly. As you become more comfortable and build that confidence, you'll naturally start to discover its full potential for tackling more complex problems and integrating it deeper into your unique workflows. And remember, because it's open source, you can always check the GitHub repo.
What's there?
You'll find extensive documentation, code examples, you can explore its underlying code if you're curious, or even contribute your own insights, bug reports, and improvements to its ongoing development. It's a tool built for the community and, ideally, by the community.
That's a great call to action. Just try it. What's truly fascinating here, and what I really hope you take away from this deep dive today, is that the Gemini CLI isn't just about, faster coding, though it certainly enables that.
Speed is a part of it.
But it feels like it's about a fundamental shift in the paradigm of how we develop software. It's AI moving beyond just being a helper tool or a static resource.
Like a search engine or a linter.
Right, to becoming a true collaborator. An active partner that can handle the tedious stuff, the complex analysis, the extensive research that often bogs us down and pulls us away from what we truly love to do as developers.
The creative problem solving.
Exactly. It truly frees you, the developer, to focus more of your energy on what you do best. The innovation, the creativity, the unique problem solving that only human ingenuity can provide, and tackling those big picture architectural challenges. This feels like just the beginning of how AI will redefine not just your terminal, but fundamentally your entire development process in the years to come.
It's an exciting time to be a developer.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Gemini CLI. We hope you're as excited about its potential as we are.
You can find all the sources we mentioned, links to the GitHub repo, installation instructions, and more details in our show notes.
Until next time, keep innovating, keep experimenting, and keep diving deep.